You're now live.
Thank you very much. Okay. We've completed the in-camera portion. We'll move on to the regular reports, Jennifer.
So the first one is the business arising report, and the first item is the library review with the Simcoe County. So I did include under correspondence, I believe, or somewhere in here, the draft executive summary from Robert Molyneux's report, which identified and corrected some of the errors in the report that the consultant provided to the county. We did meet, the CEOs in Simcoe County did meet with Alan Greenwood, the Director of Public Affairs at the county, on February 17th. I believe I told you that on the 22nd. And the meeting was very cordial. And we have most of us contacted him subsequently with, some ideas that we've had or suggestions. There wasn't a lot of content, which I get that there haven't been any major decisions made at the county. And so you couldn't expect him to provide us things that he didn't have. But we are still really concerned about how this is going to play out. I did have a meeting with Brent Kapp in the IT department about some other things. And I had mentioned some issues here that relate to IT. And he's going to pass them on to Alan Greenwood. But Your Worship, if you and the Deputy Mayor would like to sit down with me virtually and go over some of the issues that are of concern, what I don't want to see is everybody wants the county to save money. Okay, who doesn't want a municipality to save money? But if the county saves money by downloading what needs to be done and paid for to the member, the lower tier municipality, it's not really a savings to the taxpayer, because the taxpayer pays both levels of municipal government. And it may actually end up being a greater expense if it has to be distributed to throughout, 14 library systems in the county rather than being handled by one. So my concern is we don't want to see our service levels reduced by anything that changes that may go on in the county. And we want to make sure that it's not just, we're not funding it anymore, you are. We've certainly seen that happen at the municipal level when the province downloaded certain responsibilities to municipalities. And I think municipalities really stepped up and have made, the best of, maybe not the best, a bad situation, but I don't think we want that here. If things work best by having one corporation handle the mechanics, then I think the bigger picture has to be, how does the whole of the county, not just the county government itself, save money? The CEOs are willing to work with the county staff on this, and we're willing to be flexible, but we don't want to have our library boards dictated to, and we don't want our councils to have to assume costs that for the past 40 years have been held by the county government, at least not without some kind of input. And at this point of time, we've had very little input. I know there were, discussions with boards and with CAOs and CEOs and mayors at the initiation process when the consultant was doing the report. But since that report came out, there really hasn't been a lot of willingness to have feedback and allow us to provide input. So, Your Worship, that you don't have to, I'm putting you on the spot, but you don't have to answer here. But if you would like to talk about that in more depth, because your role is not only at the lower tier, but also the upper tier level, I'm more than happy to make myself available to you and the Deputy Mayor.
Perfect. If I can, Madam Chair, Jennifer, no problem putting me on the spot. You do that very well anytime you want to address these issues when it comes to the county. I do want to ask, though, you said that you feel that you have not been heard at the county level, or not been heard as part of this process. Could you maybe expand upon that and let me know, where is it that you feel that that this process did not support you as a CEO or representing Clearview
I think the
Public
concept,
Library? What's the issue that you are not being heard?
Well, I think we're being heard, but you can hear someone and not pay any attention to what they're saying. And I know when the
I'm sorry, I
consultant,
thought you were talking about politicians here.
oh, no, I don't think, well, I'm not saying politicians don't do that, Doug, but that's not what I'm referring to. I feel
I'm
very
teasing you.
strongly that yeah, I don't think it's the politicians. I don't even think it's the committee that's looking at this that isn't paying attention to us. I think
Okay.
there's an unwillingness to, there's a willingness to let us speak, but there's a difference between letting someone speak and listening to what they say.
I see.
That is what I have an issue with. I don't have a problem with that with politicians. If I sit down with you and the deputy mayor, it's because I just want to give you a more fulsome account of our perspective as representatives of your library systems in your municipality.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but I do not fault politicians on this whatsoever.
Okay, well, that's good to know. And so I'll speak to the deputy mayor and see if we could set something up. I'll work through, of course, Jen Kane Percy, who organizes our calendars and schedules. So we'll see if we can organize something.
Okay.
Thank you for that opportunity.
Good.
Okay. Our grand opening is still scheduled for May 14th. We're working.
Can we
hard.
just go back for just a second,
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Yes, Mary.
Sorry, I forgot I was muted. I'm just wondering if one of the problems that we're facing is that there is a conclusion that has been reached. And so any material that's received that doesn't support that conclusion is just going to get ignored. Is there a chance that's happening here?
And you want me to say that in a public forum?
Sorry, I'm not saying that you have to be conclusive about it. I'm just a little bit worried that.
Well, I'm not the only CEO that at the time that the consultant's report came out, that there was speculation that perhaps the conclusion had been prepared before the report was done and not by the consultant and not by the politicians. So but that's me being jaundiced because I've been here for 30 years and I've seen so much. So that may not be the case. My concern is that there's been a willingness to have us speak and discuss what our issues are and get it, get in touch with, we as a group got our own independent consultant who's very well known and is the consultant that the Ontario Library Association and the Federation of Ontario Public Libraries use when dealing with major issues in the library world in Ontario. Where was I going with that? There's a willingness to accept the documentation and what we're saying, but is there a willingness to then incorporate it into final decisions? And not everything we suggest or want is, we're not going to get pie in the sky exactly what we want. And we know that. And you can't get people who can bend over backwards like librarians. This is what we're good at. But we're not feeling that what we're saying and what we're telling them is making an influence on their decisions. And I think we're also feeling that, we had asked the executive director of FOPL, Federation of Ontario Public Libraries, and OLA, were prepared to make a joint presentation to council about this. And it wasn't going to be very long. It would have been less than half an hour. And that was turned down. And I don't know, I suppose, Doug, you would know better than me who turns that down, whether it's the warden or the clerk. Or I think not every municipality in Simcoe County has a library system. Every municipality in Simcoe County either has a library system or contracts with one. But if you don't have a library board where board members are able to feed to local politicians what's going on in the library community, or the mayor and deputy mayor are cognizant of what's going on because they either sit on the library board or councillors are reporting to them about what's happening on the library board. Some of the councils are not going to know as much about what's been going on with this review as others. And we just felt that it was best to bring this to the whole council, whether it was in the committee of the whole or council as is, I'm not sure. But it would have been nice to be able to have the executive directors, which if you think there's feathers in my caps, they've got a lot more feathers in their caps than I do. They would have done an extraordinarily good presentation and make it very intelligible to people listening what the issues were from the library perspective. As I said recently to a group of librarians who were discussing possible cuts, and this was across Ontario for rural libraries, it's great to talk about changes that will, maybe make efficiencies in reducing the number of branches. And this, in fact, was related to Service Ontario wanting to bring more services into rural public libraries where there are not Service Ontario offices in every community. But if you don't have public transport, public transit to your library, do you have access? So just little things like that, which are important equity issues for library board members, are not. Well, frankly, if we went county public library, which I don't think we will do, but there's been discussion in the report about that, you would see a lot of branches closed. I would stake my reputation on that. And we don't have a county-wide transit system. How would people get the services? They wouldn't get the services that we offer now, let alone services from Service Ontario. So these are things that so far we don't think have been considered and yet need to. Doug? Were you going to?
Mary, first of all, Mary, you brought up a really good point, and I'm glad you did. And I see that you're bringing out the passion that Jennifer brings for her role and her profession. So it's to be respected. There's no doubt about it. I got to give you guys all, as members of the board, something to consider. You have Councillors Leishman and Councillor Broderick on this committee. Give Councillor Leishman an awful lot of credit. She served on the library board for many years. I would ask Councillor Broderick to consider the fact that he served on this board for 3 years. And I want you all to know that I've served Clearview Township for over 16 years, and this is the first time that I've been on this library board. So the fact of the matter is that there's a whole lot of a lack of communication from this board to the politicians in this community alone. So if you look at that just as our community, you've got to exercise your ability to communicate with the local decision makers and the greater community in a way that communicates some of the programs and the positive things that you're bringing to our community, which we all know you do, but you have to share them and celebrate them and fly them up a flagpole once in a while, let people know. So if you don't mind, I think if you look at the county of Simcoe, there are 32 decision makers there. I wouldn't know how many of those 32 members have actually sat on their local boards. They may fall into the same category of councillors like myself as a previous councillor who had no contact with the library board for 16 years. So the knowledge base and the understanding of the value of these programs may not have been shared as well as you had perhaps dreamed it would be. So I would ask that you consider that as your CEO's committee or your other boards, that you need to consider communicating with the 32 members and make phone calls or Zoom calls to do this very thing that you're frankly attempting to lobby me. So good for you. And I do look forward to sitting down with you and Barry and our deputy mayor and having that same conversation. And I know that you may enlighten the deputy mayor, because I don't believe the deputy mayor has ever served on this board either.
No.
There you go.
And your worship, I think you are 100% correct. And that's certainly something I pushed at CEO meetings, is that we as a group need to not only go and, talk to our own mayors and deputy mayors who are councillors, but something needs to come from our group to the whole of council. And if we're not allowed to do it through a deputation, there are other means and ways. But when you go to vote on something, you need to have the information to make the correct decision. So it's on us and on the library board as a whole to get that information in your hands.
Right. There are 33 emails attached to the email address council@simcoe.ca. There's 32 of them are elected officials, and one of them is the deputy clerk, I believe, is the only other person who's on that list.
Okay.
So use that to communicate with the members of the county council.
All right, well, thank you, Your Worship. That's very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so we do have a grand opening coming up and it's coming along. And I mean, you can talk to Michelle about what specifically we're doing, which is a lot for it. But one of the things that we're working on is having the signage up for the donation prepared. It may not be the final signage. It will be good quality stuff. It's not going to be pieces of paper. And we're going through the list of, which donor has donated how much and what area of the library their signage will be on. Something that we're going to have to look at going forward, and we don't have to do this right away, is we need a donor recognition wall or something. And we've discussed this in the past, but we need to finalize that. And I think the fact that I haven't gone out and ordered permanent signage is a good thing, because I think when you come on May 14th and see what we have in place, I would like your feedback on maybe it should be like this, maybe it should be like that. You guys, you put a lot of effort into creating this new building, and I think you should have a lot of say in exactly what the signage is. I know we have branding and we'll certainly utilize that, but you don't need the CEO to just go off in left field and make decisions. I would like your input before we do that. So there will be signage up based on donations and what people have asked to have their donations go towards. But from there, you may want something else. The group study room will have signage there, but the group study room is largely glass, and maybe it's permanent signage for that. You would like it etched, rather than just having a removable sign on it. So these are things. So when you come on May 14th, don't just look at the collection and what we're doing and the staff, but look at the signs and tell us what you like and what you don't like.
Okay.
And then maybe we can have a special meeting, maybe in the summer, to discuss that going forward. And by the end of the year, we will have signage with our logo on it, and it will look the way everybody on the board would like it to look.
Just apart from the recognition signage, I have often gone into the library but never really looked for this. How's our wayfinding signage situation?
We really had planned to do that the year after we moved in, and then the pandemic came. So there is some wayfaring signage, but not enough. So I would like to get the recognition signage up and moving, and base how we're going to move forward on the wayfaring signage on that. So if there's a certain look we want, if we like hanging signs better than just signs sitting, on top of the shelving units, I think let's start with the recognition signage, and then maybe we can have a more fulsome discussion of the wayfaring signage, because there is some in place, but there needs to be more.
Mm-hmm.
Not that people look at signs necessarily, but they should be there anyway.
Yeah.
Connie?
I'm wondering if you've discussed putting the donation thermometer out for the opening.
Oh, Michelle, were you shaking your head? That's never a good sign.
No.
Go ahead and speak.
You're muted, Michelle.
You're also Ella. Maybe you can change that.
Jennifer, I actually have a report for you tomorrow morning when I see you person to person. Can we just hold this discussion?
No, I have an
can you
ultrasound
just
tomorrow morning.
okay? Let's have a
Okay, it's
conversation
Thursday.
after. Okay, have a conversation after. Okay, and then we'll get back to the board. Okay.
Okay.
I did the stats and everything for you. So okay, just moving on if we can for a second, and we'll come back to this.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So we'll get back to you, Connie.
Okay, reopening.
Okay, so reopening. If you've been paying attention to the news, the township has put out a news release advising that as March 21st, the township office will open to the regular hours. Staff, because our policies and protocols are still in place, will continue to wear masks. And at the township office, people coming in will also have to wear masks. So what I have proposed is, because we do our scheduling on a monthly basis, is that our first, also as of March 21st, the township will no longer be working in teams, which means they'll all be back in the building. Now, there may be some staff still working from home, and that's okay. That's not what I'm talking about. So what I am proposing for our reopening is that we will reopen not the 21st for our full hours, but on the 5th of April, which is the first Tuesday of April. And so we will start being open on Tuesdays again. And we will not work in teams, which means, you know, we were segregating staff by branch, which meant we didn't have enough hours to allocate to each of the branch to be open on Tuesdays. We will eliminate capacity and time limits and time limits on the computer, except they'll go back to what they were before, which is 1 hour a day. And what I think that works pretty good for us. We do have N95 masks on site in all 3 branches, so that if staff feel more comfortable wearing them, they are available for them. They're not forced to wear them. However, I would like your input on whether you want the public to have to wear masks or not.
Pam?
Sure. I'm going back to school on the 21st, and there will be no mask mandates allowed, or like in school. A lot of people have said that they will continue to wear masks, but I know, I feel like you're going to be setting up your staff a little bit if you mandate masks. We would love, like, I think the school board, some school boards would like to keep the mask mandates, but we've been turned down by the government, or some have been anyway. I think if we try to say, tell people to wear masks when it's not illegally, like they've lifted it, I think you're gonna put your.
Are you talking about the staff or the public?
I'm talking about your staff getting harassed. Like, I think the people from the public will really push back against your staff, and I think it could get ugly, and I wouldn't want to see the staff get in that. I would love to have masks continue to be in the library and at school. I really would like to see that for at least a couple more weeks. But I think that if we tried to do that, I think your staff would get really harassed, unfortunately.
No, and my recommendation would be that we not force the public to wear staff masks. We will have them available if they walk in and they want to wear one and didn't remember to bring one.
Yeah.
But my preference would be that, because our lowest paid staff are the ones who do the most customer service.
Yeah.
And they are the ones who will be harassed. And please remember that although we usually have a couple of people on in Stainer at any time we're open, the other 2 branches, there are times when there's only 1 person on staff. And yes, we have working alone protocols, but we don't want to set them up for failure. You don't want to put them in a position where they're more likely than ever to be harassed by members of the public. And it wouldn't be most members, but you know, nobody needs to go home at night in tears because they've had that one awful person go nuts on them. And we've had a few people get very irate about having to wear masks when they were mandated. So I can just imagine what's going to happen. And I mean, we get way more people coming in the door than the township office does, even in normal township hours, because you don't go to the township office to have a good time. Unless you're really strange and you like paying your taxes. I don't know, but well,
paying taxes is a
maybe that's
privilege.
why you go. But
Hey, now, what are you talking about, Jennifer? Come on.
you enjoy your job, right? Say so do
Whenever
I.
I'm there, I always
You
have a
like
good
to-
time.
You have a good, well, that's good, but most people aren't going there for a happy time. Yes, Bob.
I think that the province has pretty much delivered a message that says that masking will be voluntary at this point. And I think what we could perhaps do is say that we could indicate to our customers, our people coming in, is that masking is not required, but is recommended. So that leaves the opportunity for our visitors to say, okay, I feel okay about wearing a mask in the library if that's my decision. And personally, for the next few weeks, until I see what's happening to the post break situation, I would not be comfortable going into stores or the library or wherever without wearing a mask, because I'm of an age where I think I'm at a little extra risk. So if we adopt the idea that we're not going to make it mandatory, that's what the province is kind of giving guidance for, but we still recommend that they be worn, then that gives a bit of positive reinforcement to our staff who will be wearing a mask and to the customer coming in.
And I would add to that too, that we encourage all people to wear their mask until they feel safe without it, that we would encourage that you feel that this is an environment where wearing your mask is actually encouraged and supported for various different reasons, so that people who think that they might come into an environment where they might be criticized because they don't wear their mask realize that this is a supportive environment that supports you continuing to wear your mask as long as you wish to, and till further. So I think that might be important too for our age groups too, to know that that's because there will be people feeling quite timid about this return to the public who, for example, haven't gone to their churches because they don't feel safe. This is a big move for a lot of people to go into public spaces.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I think Diane and I can attest to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can certainly do that. We will put out a press release. That certainly get the communications and marketing coordinator at the township to help me. She's helped me with so many. She's so good at it. And we'll make sure that we get that kind of messaging into the document.
Yeah.
Oh, hush-a-bus. Okay, so that takes care of business arising. Can I go on to the CEO's report, Madam Chair?
Please do.
So I said, don't be alarmed. We're continuing to have recurring issues at the Creemore branch. It seemed to have been resolved, but it hasn't been. So they're coming on March 24th to deal with that. They have just come on Monday into the New Lowell branch to rectify the alarm situation there. So we certainly are moving forward. Not as quickly as I had hoped. We had a tree come down at the New Lowell branch in the big windstorm we had, and it fell on the hydro wire going to the New Lowell church property. Now, in the past, we've had an arborist come and deal with that and split the cost with the church. But in this instance, I notified the deputy director of public works, and the tree was gone before the day was done. So feathers in the deputy director's cap. That was great. And I appreciate greatly that, because I don't think they lost power, but I've had a tree come down next to the house here. And that's a real worry when you start having 60-foot trees falling on your property.
Mm-hmm.
Our pop-up library device, is it now working, Michelle?
Okay, it's working perfectly now, and we're going to be demonstrating it on our demo day on Saturday. All fixed.
That's great. Okay, I have completed the Ontario Trillium Foundation Resilient Communities Grant Report. The only thing we have to put out now is for the final report to be completed is a press release, which I have drafted and sent off to the Trillium Foundation for their approval. They'll be contacting our MPP, who will give us a quote to put in that. So virtually complete. The ministry annual survey, yesterday I received from the township treasurer are not audited financial statements for 2021, but what I normally receive from her to complete the annual survey. We need to put in the annual survey every year to be able to qualify for the provincial library operating and pay equity grant. So I've got all the other components of the survey completed. I'm just waiting on the financials, got them yesterday. It will be completed by the end of the week. I would just advise you that the township is still waiting for the 2020 financial statements from the auditor. But the ministry has been notified, I think, as I've told you before, that this is in the works. And even though it was due, I think, September of last year, they've just said, send it to us when you have it. So that's good. Board meeting format. I know council will be looking at this issue soon. And my recommendation to the board would be, let's let council deal with this issue and see what they come up with in terms of return to in-person meetings or a hybrid virtual in-person, and then base whatever we decide to do on that. If we're going to do a hybrid, I've been advised by the township clerk that we can only be accommodated for that because, you know, if we do it in council chambers for the people who want to be in person. And Doug is putting his hand up. He wants me to shut up so he can speak. Okay.
All right. Through the chair, I'll just advise the board. I had a conversation with our clerk. It would be every intention for this council to return council meetings, the Township Council to return on the 11th of April to full in-person meetings. However, as it turns out, that particular day, the 11th, I will be at the OGRA convention in Toronto. Oh. So if we did, in fact, host the first meeting in person on the 11th, several members may not be in attendance and may be virtually attending the meeting anyway. So looking ahead, April the 25th is the next opportunity when our council can meet all together in person on April 25th. So that's the news that's going to come out very soon, and I don't mind announcing it here on your meeting, Madam Chair. Okay. For your particular meeting format, though, I would recommend that you have a conversation with the IT department at the Township of Clearview. Magdalena has, through the clerk's office, purchased a camera, which is very, very helpful for doing these type of meetings in a in-person format, while still being able to provide them as a YouTube linkable format.
And so I have discussed that with the clerk. So
yeah, we have a camera that has been purchased. We only have one, but it might be within your budget to purchase one for yourselves that you could use in this format in your own meeting space, and or perhaps even patrons of the library may want to use it for any type of group meeting where they have a meeting together or do a group Zoom meeting with someone. So it's something you might want to investigate. It's not terribly expensive. I was surprised, actually. It's not that expensive, but it's kind of an innovative sort of way to do this. So I would encourage you to look into it. It's not that difficult. And I think with the number of members on this board, you can sit around a boardroom table and have an in-person format and still be able to deliver these meetings in a live Zoom format.
So is that an owl? Is that what you guys got? Was the owl?
That's, yeah, they bought the owl camera.
Very cool. Yeah.
They're pretty cool. To be fair, it's a little herky-jerky sort of movement in the camera.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it's doing exactly what it's doing for the value that you're spending, right? I mean, if you consider each one of us right now are sitting in front of a computer, and let's just say each computer costs a little more than $1,000, right? And then there's the software Zoom that we're using right now. This camera is somewhere around the $2,000 mark and would cover everybody with one computer. So, you know, you get what you pay for.
Well, and for the people that can't, like your meeting that you're talking about, you could be at that meeting because the owl turns and faces the speaker, so it moves around.
Right.
And you can also focus it on one specific person if you wish to, if you've got a speaker or something like that. So it's a pretty cool.
Yeah, it's innovative. I mean, you know, Mary and committee, I'm a former broadcast television, person, and I don't consider it quality by any means, but it works. No. Okay. So
yeah.
All right. Well, my recommendation would be our next board meeting is April 19th, which is before your council meeting, which you intend to do in person. So I would certainly say, let's not gazump council. Let's have our
No,
next.
you do what you want.
No, but let's have council have their in-person meeting. And if there's any bugs to be worked out for that, then we'll let you handle it, councillors, and we'll take your lead. But maybe I can get some information on the OWL camera and how we would be able to utilize it in terms of where we would have the meetings.
Well, maybe we could borrow theirs too.
No, it
and
can't
use
come
it.
out of council chambers. They're more
No.
than happy for us to have, if we have our meeting in council chambers, that is fine with the clerk's
Yeah,
department.
yeah.
Yes, that's
we
very
can-
possible for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but if you wanted to do it in other spaces, even our group study room, probably with the current configuration, we would have difficulty fitting 10 people and around the table and having all of us feel comfortable being that close to each other. I think social distancing, you're going to see go down from 6 feet, but I don't think we're ever going to be wanting to sit 2 inches away from the person next to us again, at least not most of us. But let me gather some more information on this for our next meeting, and we
Yeah.
can come up with a decision on how we want to go forward. And that also gives you some time to think about what you feel comfortable with. As Bob has raised, some of us are feeling a little less confident about how they're going to adapt to, not having masks and some of these other mandates on us because of our personal health situation or our age or whatever. And so I would like you all to think about that, because you're important members of our board community, and you should be thinking about what's best for you too, as well as what's best for the board. So if I can get you some information for the next meeting agenda, and then we can maybe make a decision based on how you feel about things and what I'm able to gather for you. That makes sense? Okay.
Yep.
Now, something else that I've included in the package, and I've discussed this with the chair, is the township's land acknowledgement. Because most library boards now are moving in this direction, as their councils have. And I have made the recommendation to remove Clearview Township and put in Clearview Public Library. But the board chair has quite correctly indicated that Clearview Township doesn't just mean government. It also means a place, and the Clearview Public Library place is in Clearview Township. So we could in fact adopt this verbatim from council. And that would be my recommendation to do so at this point.
Any opinions? Mayor Measures?
Madam Chair, I think we should adopt this. And if you're comfortable, I think we should have a motion to adopt the use of the land acknowledgement statement at the beginning of our monthly board meetings. And to acknowledge also that it is a voluntary statement, that you are not obligated to say it. It's something that you have every right as the board chair to say the land acknowledgement if you wish. I'd move it if somebody wanted to second it.
Thank you. Does anybody want to second it? Lots of seconders. All in favor? We're good. Okay, this is important. I just have to figure out how to pronounce some of the tribes' names.
I'll help you out with that. I've
got
said it a
them?
few times. I got them
Oh,
now.
good. Oh,
You give me
good.
a call. We'll have a conversation on the phone and we can help them out. Okay.
Thank you very much, because some of them are challenging. Bob?
Thank you. I think the idea of using Clearview Township as opposed to the Clearview Public Library is a good one. It doesn't make the acknowledgement any stronger or weaker by us putting our name on it, the Clearview Public Library name on it.
Yeah.
But certainly it would be united with what the township is doing. And I think it identifies us as a township board and facility. So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, thank you. I just thought it was a geographical area, not just a political area. And we're in that geographical area. So it's okay to keep it in there for that reason, Okay, going on to your strategic plan, Jennifer.
Okay, again, because of the pandemic, some of these things, there's not a lot to report. Transition to new standard branch, nothing to report. well, there was nothing to report on accessibility. We're currently working on some accessibility things at the new Lowell branch, but very small ones. Organizational review. So the township's market value and pay equity review is beginning. You approved the job descriptions and they have been forwarded along with your motion approving them to the township HR manager. And she will forward them to the consultant who's doing this review. If there are any changes to library position placements in the job grid, I will advise you. The job grids are, once they're adopted and established, are a matter of public record. So that's what's going on there. There's nothing currently in space development and modernization or greening. Staff, board, and volunteer departments, we will be welcoming our volunteers back into the branches in April. Of course, if some of them feel uncomfortable coming back and we can accommodate them by letting them do some of what they would normally do from home, we're happy to do that. And I'm suspecting that unless everything goes, well, I won't say it, but you can guess what I was going to say, that we will resume in-person programming in the summer. Now, when we do in-person programming, something that I will expect staff to deal with is that they should have some modicum of social distancing. So one of the things that our Ontario Trillium Resilient Communities Fund grant, that's a long one, allowed us to do was get pillow markers for the kids, because sometimes you'll get the kids all grouped and bunched together. But if you place the markers apart, they're usually pretty good about sitting where you put the pillow. So that was a good grant. It sounds like a funny, weird thing, but it will allow us to ensure that there's a certain amount of distance between the participants. And, you know, we also got the speaker system, wireless speaker system through that grant that we will use going forward for when we're into the, especially into the Stainer Community Center doing programming, because it will allow us to communicate with everyone regardless of how close or how far away they are. I mean, if we had a presentation or a speaker come in and we were going to have the whole hall pretty much full, it's nice if somebody at the back can actually hear what's going on. So it was a good use of those funds. Oh, and the last thing is staff have been through a lot in the last few years. And I really think when April 5th comes and we're removing all these restrictions, and I thank you very much for not expecting members of the public to wear masks, because that would have increased their stress level. But it would be really nice if something came from the board thanking the staff for their hard work and efforts in providing quality, efficient, economical library services to the public through the pandemic. Because I really think that Clearview Public Library has been a real leader in this, especially when you look at small public libraries. And I think it would be a real boon for them if you provided some acknowledgement of that.
Okay. Okay.
I think the final thing we've talked about, the land acknowledgement, is really the bank account report.
Okay. So we're not doing anything with the executive summary of the.
Well, please read it over.
Yeah.
If you have questions, get in touch with me about that, and I'll try to go over that with you individually. But I don't think you need to hit on every point. What I wanted you to see is that that's not the final report. That's just the draft of the executive summary in the final report. When I have the whole final report, I can certainly include it in the board documentation, but I think once I get it, I will send it to each of you, because I hope to get it before a board meeting. And I really think you need to see the full document, but read it over. If you have questions, I may not even have the answer to all your questions, but I can find them for you, because that's what librarians do, and we'll get the information to you. I would like to just say that since the bank accounts report came out, we did just receive another $500 donation to the Stainer Library Building Fund.
Oh, good.
So, our efforts to meet our target are ongoing.
Mm. Okay. Okay, thanks, Jennifer.
Jennifer, could I just ask one question? That executive summary, who is that from?
Robert Molyneux.
It says on there, Bob.
So, but did he prepare what we've seen there?
Yes.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things criticizing this process. Is that his remarks?
Well, he was hired by the library boards to review the consultants, the county consultants report. And these are his findings.
Okay, I'll speak to you privately about this.
All right.
All right, does anyone have any new business that they would like to bring forward? Nope. Okay. So our next meeting will be Tuesday, April the 19th. And at this point, we're still continuing with the virtual format until maybe the following month. We'll see how it goes at council. Okay, so I guess we're done. Can we have a motion to adjourn, please?
Tune into the council meeting to see how it works.
Yeah, really. Eh? Okay. Yeah, really. Eh? Okay, so we had a bunch of people with their hands up. Jennifer, making that motion and seconding it. So we're adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll see you next month, if not sooner.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Be well, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Did you want me to give you a call, Jen?
Can we just stay on the call?
Sure.
No,
give me
you
2
can't. You're
seconds.
still live on the air.
Are we still
Yeah.
live? Okay,
Yes,
Kayla, can
you have to turn
unblind
that
it?
off.
Okay, I'm gonna go get those file folders, okay? Hang on.
Okay, I'm just trying to see where Kayla is.
You have to turn that. No, she's gone. You have to turn it off.
She's
You're now
gone.
the
I have
host.
to turn it off. Okay, I will get back to her then. Thank you, your worship. You were very
Okay.
helpful in the meeting.